Have you ever paused to wonder why, no matter who we are or where we come from, life seems to carry an unavoidable weight? That silent, invisible burden we all share. Pain, loss, frustration, and that restless sense of not enough. It's something every human being across time and place experiences in one form or another. This is the essence of suffering, or as the ancient Buddhists called it, Dukkha. Suffering isn't just about the big, dramatic moments, the heartbreaks, the tragedies, or the glaring failures. It's woven into the very fabric of everyday life. The subtle dissatisfaction that lingers after a fleeting joy, the unease that bubbles beneath our routines, the endless craving for things to be different than they are. This persistent discomfort is something Buddhism confronts head-on, not with denial or avoidance, but with clear-eyed wisdom. What's remarkable about the Buddhist approach is its honesty. Instead of pretending suffering doesn't exist or trying to escape it through distractions, it asks us to recognize it fully, to see it for what it truly is. This recognition is not meant to deepen despair, but to open the door to understanding and, ultimately, liberation. Imagine for a moment that suffering is like a stormy sea. No matter how strong the ship, no matter how skilled the sailor, the waves will come. But what if the key isn't to control the sea or avoid the storm, but to learn how to navigate through it with calm and clarity? Buddhism offers exactly this: tools to steer through life's inevitable challenges without being overwhelmed. At its core, this path begins with acknowledging the undeniable truth: suffering is part of being human. But it doesn't end there. It invites us to look deeper. Why does suffering arise? Can it end? And if so, how do we walk toward that freedom? These questions have guided countless seekers for over 2,000 years. Their answers, though profound, are not shrouded in mystery or locked away in distant temples. They are accessible here and now, within each moment of our experience. As we embark, if suffering is a universal experience, then the natural question arises: where does it come from? What fuels this endless cycle of pain, dissatisfaction, and unrest that seems to shadow every human life? Buddhism offers a clear and insightful answer. It teaches us to look closely, not just at the surface of our suffering, but at its roots. Because understanding the source is the key to transformation. At the heart of this teaching lie what are known as the first and second noble truths. The first truth acknowledges what we've already sensed deeply: life is permeated by suffering. But the second truth reveals something more subtle, yet powerful. Suffering arises from craving. Craving, this insatiable desire to hold on, to grasp after what we want, and to push away what we don't. It's the mind's relentless pursuit of pleasure, security, identity, and permanence in a world where nothing is permanent. Think about it. How often do we chase after things, hoping they will bring lasting happiness? Whether it's a job, a relationship, a possession, or even an idea about ourselves, there's always a part of us that clings tightly. And when these things change, fade, or disappear, as they inevitably do, pain follows. This craving is deeply tied to attachment. Attachment is more than just liking something. It's a fixation, a desperate clutching at something external to our true nature. It's as if we build our sense of self on sand, expecting it to hold firm through the storms of life. But there's another layer here, even more subtle: ignorance. Not ignorance in the usual sense of lack of knowledge, but a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works. We see ourselves as permanent, independent entities, separate from the world and from others. This illusion of a fixed self traps us in a cycle of wanting and fearing, of grasping and rejecting. The Buddha called this ignorance avijja, the blindness that keeps us turning in circles of suffering. Imagine a moth drawn to a flame, unable to see the danger, repeating the same pattern until it burns itself. Our minds can behave in much the same way, repeating desires and aversions that ultimately cause suffering. So suffering arises not simply from external events, but from the way we relate to them, through craving, attachment, and ignorance. Recognizing these causes is like shining a light into the dark corners of our experience. It reveals the patterns that keep us trapped and opens the possibility for change. What if we could loosen this grip? What if we could wake up from the illusion that fuels our suffering? That possibility is the heart of the Buddhist path, a path that doesn't reject life's difficulties, but offers a way to understand and transcend them. Understanding the nature and causes of suffering sets the stage for what comes next. Having seen how suffering arises from craving, attachment, and ignorance, you might wonder, are we doomed to this cycle forever? Is there no escape from this relentless tide of pain and dissatisfaction? Buddhism answers with a profound and hopeful truth. Suffering is not permanent, it can end. There is a possibility, a real, tangible way to free ourselves from this cycle. This insight is captured in the third noble truth, which might just be the most revolutionary idea in all of spiritual teaching. It says simply, suffering can cease. Imagine what it means to truly grasp this, not as a distant dream or vague hope, but as an achievable reality. The end of suffering is called nirvana, a state beyond craving and ignorance, beyond the endless pushing and pulling of the mind. Nirvana is not a place or a reward in the afterlife. It is a living experience of peace and freedom here and now, a liberation from the inner turmoil that clouds our minds. But how do we get there? How do we let go of the craving and ignorance that chain us? The key is in recognizing that craving and ignorance are not fixed or permanent traits of who we are. They are patterns of mind, habits that can be understood, weakened, and ultimately dissolved. Picture a tightly clenched fist. The harder you squeeze, the more pain you feel. But if you slowly begin to relax your grip, the pain lessens. In the same way, by loosening our mental grasp, the craving for what we want and the fear of losing what we hold, we begin to open to a different way of being. This letting go doesn't mean becoming numb or indifferent. It means facing reality with clarity and acceptance, without the constant need to control or resist. The third noble truth offers hope not only because it promises an end to suffering, but because it invites us to take active steps toward it. It tells us, yes, you can be free. Freedom is not a fantasy. It is a path, a practice, a transformation. And that transformation begins with understanding that suffering is not something to be feared or denied, but to be known deeply and worked with skillfully. This possibility is what makes Buddhism a living tradition, one that has inspired millions across centuries to walk a path of wisdom and compassion. So the question shifts from, why do I suffer? To, how can I end this suffering? This shift is the gateway to liberation, and the path forward. It is laid out clearly in what's known as the Eightfold Path, a practical guide to living that cultivates the wisdom, ethics, and mental discipline needed to awaken. From here, the journey deep. So we've come to a turning point. The path that leads out of suffering is no longer a mystery. It's laid out clearly like a map to freedom. This is the Eightfold Path, the heart of Buddhist practice. But it's not just a set of rules. It's a holistic way of living that transforms how we see the world, relate to others, and experience ourselves. Imagine walking through a dense forest. The path isn't always obvious, and the terrain can be tricky. But with a guide, a clear trail, and the right tools, every step becomes purposeful. The Eightfold Path is that guide, a practical framework to navigate life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. The path is traditionally divided into three essential categories: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Each part supports and strengthens the others, creating a balanced approach to transformation. First, there is wisdom, which begins with right view, seeing reality as it truly is, understanding suffering, its causes, and the possibility of liberation. This isn't mere intellectual knowledge. It's deep insight into the nature of existence. Right intention, cultivating thoughts of goodwill, harmlessness, and renunciation of harmful desires. It's about setting a clear, compassionate motivation for our actions. Next comes ethical conduct, which shapes how we live outwardly. Right speech, speaking truthfully, kindly, and helpfully. Words hold immense power to heal or harm, and mindfulness here transforms our relationships. Right action. Acting with integrity, avoiding harm to others through our deeds. This means living in ways that respect life, honesty, and generosity. Right livelihood. Choosing work in ways of making a living that do not cause suffering. It's about aligning our means of survival with our values. Finally, mental discipline focuses inward. Right effort. Developing the willpower to abandon harmful habits and cultivate wholesome qualities. It's the energy we bring to the path. Right mindfulness. Cultivating a clear, present awareness of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. Mindfulness is the lens through which transformation becomes possible. Right concentration. Developing deep focus and meditative absorption, which stabilizes the mind and opens the door to profound insight. Together, these 8 elements create a living practice, a guide that's as relevant today as it was over 2,000 years ago. What makes the Eightfold Path so powerful is its balance. Wisdom without ethics can become cold and detached. Ethics without wisdom may turn rigid. And mental discipline without compassion might slip into mere self-control. The path weaves all 3 together, inviting us to grow in harmony. This path is not about perfection or achieving an endpoint quickly. It's about steady, mindful steps forward, learning from each moment, gently correcting course and embracing growth. By following this way, the grip of craving loosens, ignorance fades, and the heart opens. We begin to live not in reaction to suffering, but in understanding and freedom. And how do we cultivate this understanding and freedom? Through practice, especially mindfulness and meditation, which we will explore next. These practices deepen our insight as we walk the path mapped out by the Eightfold Path. One practice shines as a beacon: mindfulness. This isn't just a trendy buzzword, but a profound skill that lies at the very heart of Buddhist teaching. Mindfulness is the art of paying attention, fully, clearly, and without judgment, to whatever is happening right now. It is waking up from the autopilot of our distracted minds to truly experience life as it unfolds. Why is this so crucial in facing suffering? Because suffering often lives in our resistance to the present moment. The craving for something different, the pushing away of discomfort, the stories we tell ourselves that deepen pain. Mindfulness invites us to pause, breathe, and observe without clinging or aversion. It's a gentle but powerful way to break the cycle of reactive patterns that keep suffering alive. When practiced consistently, mindfulness opens the door to meditation, a deeper training of the mind. Meditation is not about escaping life or suppressing emotions. Instead, it is learning to hold our experience with kindness and clarity. It's like training a wild horse to be calm and steady, so it doesn't throw us off when the terrain gets rough. Through meditation, we develop concentration, the ability to focus our attention steadily on one object, such as the breath. This steadiness brings calm and stability, allowing the mind to settle into a peaceful clarity. But meditation is more than calmness. As our concentration deepens, insight naturally arises. This insight, called vipassana, reveals the true nature of our experience. We begin to see how everything is impermanent, how suffering arises from craving, and how the self we cling to is not as solid as it seems. This wisdom is not just intellectual. It's experiential, felt deeply in the body and mind. With this insight, our relationship to suffering transforms. Instead of fighting or denying it, we meet it with understanding. We see suffering as a passing phenomenon, not an identity. This shift in perception weakens the grip of craving and attachment. We learn to respond with compassion to ourselves and others, rather than with fear or anger. Mindfulness and meditation create a space, a sanctuary within us, where suffering can be met without being overwhelmed. This inner sanctuary grows stronger with practice, helping us navigate life's inevitable challenges with grace. And here's the beauty: these practices are accessible to everyone, regardless of background or belief. They can be woven into daily life. As mindfulness and insight deepen, a natural shift begins to occur in our hearts, a softening, an opening toward compassion. This is no coincidence. In Buddhism, compassion is not just a noble ideal. It is a powerful force that transforms suffering from within. When we face our own pain with acceptance, not resistance or denial, we begin to understand that suffering is a shared human experience. This realization dissolves isolation and cultivates empathy. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or giving up. Instead, it is a courageous embrace of reality as it is, with all its imperfections and pain. It's the soil in which true healing grows. In this space of acceptance, compassion arises, not only for others but for ourselves. We recognize that we, too, deserve kindness, patience, and care. This compassion becomes an active energy, guiding us to respond to suffering, our own and others, with wisdom rather than judgment or fear. Through practices like metta bhavana or loving-kindness meditation, we intentionally cultivate feelings of goodwill and warmth, first toward ourselves, then extending outward to friends, strangers, and even those we find difficult. This is transformative. When we see suffering through the lens of compassion, it changes its meaning. Pain becomes a doorway, an opportunity for connection, growth, and awakening. The Buddha taught that this heart of compassion is inseparable from wisdom. Together, they dissolve the roots of suffering, ignorance, craving, and aversion. Moreover, acceptance and compassion empower us to engage with life fully, without running away or shutting down. We learn to respond to challenges not with reactivity but with clarity and kindness. This is a radical freedom, a freedom that transforms suffering into a path of awakening. In this way, Buddhism doesn't promise a life without pain, but offers a profound way to walk through suffering with dignity and grace. As this chapter closes, we see that the path is not just about individual liberation. It is about opening the heart to the world, recognizing our shared humanity, and becoming a source of. We began our journey acknowledging a universal truth. Suffering is an undeniable part of life. It touches every heart, crosses every boundary, and weaves itself into the fabric of our existence. Yet what if suffering is not just a burden to bear, but a profound teacher guiding us toward awakening? This is the radical message of Buddhism. Suffering, when fully understood and embraced, becomes the gateway to liberation. Rather than fleeing from pain or resisting it, we learn to turn toward it with courage and curiosity. We explore its roots in craving and ignorance, and gently untangle the knots that bind us. Through the wisdom of the Eightfold Path, the clarity of mindfulness, and the warmth of compassion, suffering ceases to be an enemy. It transforms into a mirror reflecting the truth of impermanence, interconnectedness, and the ever-changing nature of self. In embracing suffering, we awaken to a deeper reality, one where peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of understanding and acceptance. This awakening frees us from the endless cycle of grasping and aversion. It opens a space where joy and sorrow, success and failure, life and death, are seen with equanimity and grace. Our journey does not end here. The path unfolds continuously, inviting us to practice, to grow, and to embody this wisdom in every moment. Each step taken with mindfulness and compassion is a step away from suffering and a step toward freedom. So, let suffering be not a weight that crushes but a path that leads you home, to your true nature, to peace, and to awakening. May this understanding inspire your journey, offering both comfort and courage in the face of life's inevitable challenges. Thank you for walking this path together.